Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm honored to have back on the show for a second time targeted individual, MK Ultra, and electronic mind control survivor and whistleblower, medical abuse whistleblower and survivor, humanitarian, math wizard, simulation and strategy game pattern finder lover, sports and music enthusiast, amateur photographer, travel aficionado, foreign language and country devotee, and brave warrior, Gregory Peary Garbor. A little context on Gregory's testimony in case you missed his first episode or if you guys are new here. Gregory was born into a world of shadows and secrets, a lineage steeped in ritual abuse with connections to government, Freemasonry, military, and valued bloodlines. His journey into understanding his origins began with the puzzle pieces of his great-grandmother's life, labeled crazy for truths perhaps too heavy for her time to bear, and discovering that the man he knew as his father was not actually his biological parent, which added yet another layer of mystery to his birth, which even his own mother can't recall clearly. Gregory's life has been a battlefield of targeted abuse from which he emerges not just as a survivor, but as an educator and a beacon of hope. His experiences with medical abuse have led him down a path of holistic healing where he has found answers and remedies outside the confines of traditional medicine. This journey has not only been about personal healing, but about sharing knowledge that could save others from the pitfalls of conventional health practices. On Gregory's first episode we did together, we took a deep dive into his personal testimony, detailing his harrowing upbringings and the struggles his abuse led to later in life. We heard the raw details of his traumatic childhood and the subsequent battles stemming from that abuse. Yet, what shone through was Gregory's astonishing resilience and ingenuity. His journey is a testament to thinking beyond conventional solutions to tackle severe health challenges, heal from trauma, and navigate through targeted adversities. I've included a link to our first episode in the show notes for you guys to watch and experience this profound narrative firsthand. On today's episode, we delve deeper into Gregory's healing journey, exploring new facets of his life. We'll discuss his views on drug decriminalization and drugs, his encounters with Mossad, the university's link to his experiences of abuse and targeting, his path to holistic healing, gratitude, and so much more. Please also check the show notes for additional resources, links to Gregory's Substack, YouTube, and other platforms where he is courageously sharing his insights online. Gregory's story isn't just about the darkness of organized abuse from childhood into adulthood. It's a vivid illustration of human spirit triumph. His life teaches us that every obstacle can be overcome, circumvented, or dismantled. Gregory stands as a warrior, an inspiration, and a beacon of hope, inspiring us on the resilience of the human spirit against all odds. We are truly privileged to get to learn from his journey, and I, for one, cannot wait to dive in today. So you guys, let's go. Before wrapping up the introduction of today's guest, I wanted to share just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, sharing any information privately with me, or submitting a written testimony for my upcoming book series or to be featured on a Substack article, you can reach out to me via email at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com or standbysurvivors@protonmail.com. Additionally, I've teamed up with a couple of my own favorite brands to offer you exclusive discount codes on products I love, including Rife Technology Frequency Machines and CZTL's Premium Methylene Blue. You can find all the relevant links and codes along with other resources in the show notes. Your support across all platforms is greatly appreciated, especially as I've had to shift to alternative streaming platforms such as Rumble and X for following the termination of my former YouTube channel. I've just started a new YouTube channel you can subscribe to at the handle @Imagination Podcast Official that I will be rebuilding as well. This transition to multiple platforms is crucial for continuing sharing vital information with the public and the disclosure communities. Thank you all wholeheartedly for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivors, whistleblowers, educators, and advocates. Your support means the world. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming back today's guest of honor, survivor and thriver, whistleblower, walking miracle, anti-child abuse and targeted individual advocate, content creator, independent researcher and investigator, and an overcomer who is here today against all odds, the one, the only, Gregory Peary Garbor. Gregory, thank you so much for coming back today. What an honor it is to have you back on.
Thank you, Emma. It's great to be back. It's so soon already, It's really it's awesome. You have an amazing platform.
And it's because I have wonderful guests like you who are so privy on information that the rest of the public isn't. And, these topics really are the most important thing. And I was so excited looking at your past episode. You got a ton of views already and a lot of engagement, which is terrific. So it really shows that there's an interest and a need for these topics to be talked about more, whether it's targeting or whether it is, healing and just circumnavigating these different little pockets of trauma that kind of pop up on our journey of trying to escape abuse that seems to follow us sometimes, and I know your story is one of those that demonstrates on that scale how childhood abuse can follow somebody into adulthood, and so we're really grateful that we get to learn from you because you're definitely not the only one. And, we all have things to heal from. And I think the medical industry and a lot of that abuse along with the trauma that a lot of us, just acquire from our lives, whether we had a childhood like yours or just your traditional dysfunction in a family that can impact you as an adult, we all need to come together and share these resources on how we can, more naturally and holistically get through these things without being dependent on, big pharma and these different institutions that really they're really all about sick care. It's not necessarily getting you better, So I hate saying that Western medicine is just all bad. I think it can be good temporarily. It's just they don't want it to ever be temporary, and a lot of people end up going through a lot of abuse through that system like you did. So it's awesome that you've taken that liberty to reverse engineer your health, research yourself, figure out the answers that the doctors couldn't give you, and figure out remedies for yourself that you would have never heard from any doctor that you went through. So I wanted to get started on this by first helping share your social media platforms and help people find you online. You're doing a lot of free content. You're doing a lot of education on all of this. Like I said, it's so needed. You have some really helpful videos. So I wanted to give you some space at the beginning to maybe talk about that journey of being online and the different platforms that you're on and what information you're sharing.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Emma. First of all, I also want to apologize because in the last podcast, I was kind of in the flow and you were trying to interject and I just kept on going. And so hopefully
Oh,
hopefully
you're good.
it's an offensive. But anyways, I want to say that I did not mention my TikTok account last time. My first one was shut down. Well, I think I mentioned that it was shut down, but I have a new one. It's Matchbox sign 369. My old one was Matchbox sign 39. 39 is my favorite number, anyways. So for reasons of Asperger's and numerology and stuff. But and then so you can reach me there, follow me there. X, I'm really using X a lot now, Twitter, for Matchbox sign 369. That's really my main social media platform currently. I kind of bounce around a lot, depending on what suits me best and what my mood is. Finding a lot of people in the targeted community on X and a lot of stuff on NK Ultra and things like that too, and a lot of people that are awakened to the political shenanigans that we're going through and have been going through for a very long time. And then I wanted to clarify my YouTube channels. A lot of some of my most epic YouTubes were under the handle Matchbox sign 39, but that was a temporary account that I created in either I created back in March, either when I was on the road, when I didn't associate it with anything else, and it was a temporary burner Gmail account. I don't even know what email address it's associated with, so I won't be uploading any new content onto that one. If you haven't seen the restless leg, or the medical system doesn't care about you, that's basically my entire story with psychiatry and debunking much of modern psychiatry. Actually, that was my intended suicide note of the world to the world, to be honest. You know, it's I wasn't that wasn't the plan for me in life. You know, I changed my mind. Let's just say, and so. But it's very emotional. Of course, why Black Americans smoke menthol cigarettes, and that just proves longstanding systemic racism. But then it's not limited to the Black people, because restless leg syndrome is a condition that happens more to people of European descent than it does to any other ethnic group. So the point is that we're all getting the short end of the stick here. Um, and so. Anyways, but the YouTube channel that I have access to and that I do use is Subjectively Observed, where I first started recording about a year ago, March 6th of 2024, bamboozled there's really a lot of great content in there, where I laid the frameworks and stuff. I basically lay out things with ChatGPT on sort of how diabolical secret societies can be. There's basically that we're in a covert civil war, and other things. So any new YouTube content that I'll be uploading, it will probably be here under this handle. But again, I mostly use X, I check Twitter, X, and TikTok daily and such. So,
Mm.
I
I got
believe
a
I
podcast.
included an email address to reach me at as well. I need to regain access to Substack, but I do have a lot of great stuff on Substack. But I have not put anything new on there in a long time. So, yeah.
That's a bummer. You do have a lot of good stuff on here though, so I would still encourage people to go subscribe because there's tons of content on here already that he's uploaded.
Yeah, and that's my MRI in the top right, and you'll notice that big old white dot right by in the frontal cortex on the bottom there by the sinus cavity. That's a parasitic cyst of some sort
Oh, no
that
way.
was responsible for most of my chronic health conditions that doctors deny. The only reason why I have that is because I was a cognitive neuroscience researcher in 2006, so I had my own MRI to analyze. Whereas any of my clinical imagings, and they're always doctors are like, there are no problems there. When I was looking at my own MRI, I had all day to look at it. I was just like, what is that? Anyways,
Totally. How
yeah.
exciting. Thank you for putting all of this content on. I know firsthand how long all of this takes, and without a crew to help, like a lot of podcasters have, editors and publishers and, people to take clips and to upload and do all the work. Just even one TikTok video can take a long time. It can be a big labor of love. So thank you for
Mhm.
everything that you're doing. And it's great to see you on so many platforms, and cool that you're even on TikTok now doing the shorter videos and content on here. So everybody listening, I'm going to have all of these links below, and I do encourage you to go follow Gregory, especially if you or somebody which likely is you or somebody has experienced medical abuse, or, just has certain maybe chronic or acute illnesses or diseases that you guys are looking to maybe find some natural remedies for, so you can start walking away from the, Western medicine model. And even if you're a survivor or target, there's so much good content and information on all of these different platforms that can really help you get started on your journey, and then encourage you to maintain it by these different detox protocols and different things that he talks about there too. So I will have all that in the show notes for you guys, and really encourage you guys to go connect with Gregory on all these different platforms. Out of curiosity, what's been your favorite platform for posting, say, videos or content that you want to share with everybody? Do you prefer like the long format videos on YouTube? Have you really liked TikTok?
Well, the problem is that the my I'm not getting the accurate. I know a lot of my stuff has gone viral, be it on TikTok or YouTube, just by the feedback that I've gotten from other people online and in person. But I don't see that in my views, and I don't see that in my engagement in the comments or anything like that, or the likes or anything. So.
They shadow ban.
It's hard to say. The most engagement that I've received has been on TikTok, and but TikTok is a very censored platform. That there are certain things that you cannot say, or otherwise, bam, it's taken off. The TikTok. Actually, no, it wasn't. The TikTok that got me banned isn't, I don't have posted anywhere. I have it somewhere on, I think on Telegram or something, but I don't want to share that right now. But yeah, so there were many things I couldn't upload onto TikTok that, or a couple of things that I put on YouTube instead. And anyways, it depends. I mean, I would like to be able to get the appropriate feedback and view numbers and things like that, but I'm not doing this for monetary gain. I'm not doing this for selfish reasons. I'm just trying to get information out there to wake people up of what's really going on, rather than feeding into the propaganda. And, uh,
And that's
and
very
I also want to say that Western medicine isn't all bad. There
totally.
are some great things to it.
Yeah,
If you're having a heart attack, if you break a limb, go to the hospital. I also follow a lot of MDs and stuff on X. And there are a lot of people speaking about the amazing properties of like ivermectin or fenbendazole in treating cancer and other conditions. If you're going to be starting chemotherapy or something and taking radiation in your body, you might want to try detoxing, deworming, and trying some anti-parasitic medications first to see how you respond to that before you go through an expensive and costly radiation treatment and such. So,
absolutely. And I totally agree with you. There's ways that I think the medicine model that we have here in America and in other civilized countries was intended to be used.
mhm.
Unfortunately, it's just as with every industry, there's corruption that takes place, and instead of the core values being maintained of we're going to help people per our Hippocratic oaths and different, intentions of why we got into this, there's a lot of greedy people who want to profit off people's sickness, and it becomes something that even good doctors are forced to make about money a lot of times. They also have a lot of pressure from these different institutions to, provide money to the system, and unfortunately that comes at the expense of us sometimes, but it doesn't mean that it isn't good. It doesn't mean that there's not people that benefit wholly from it, even right down to a lot of survivors, right? If you're having extreme anxiety or depression too, that can be a great model to go to if other things aren't working and that are holistic, and you just need some way to balance you for a little bit until you can move into a lighter treatment. There can be a lot of really great medications that can help temporarily. It's just like I said, the problem is they don't really put us on a path to healing and to be on a path of not having that medication. They really want us now to just continue, continue, continue. So at some point, it's great to do what you did, where you took the reins of your own health at some point and said, this was great. This all helped me, but now I'm going to see how I can get off of all of this, and maybe treat myself and not have to depend on medicines my whole life. So that's really wonderful that, people like you are starting to take back control of your health and use them for what you can, and then, walk away whenever it's time to, and try to manage your health on your own.
Yeah, yeah, and it all goes back to John D. Rockefeller, who I think it might be the greatest villain in all of American history. Not just in terms of his monopolization of oil and gas and energy, but he completely restructured our medical system, hijacked all the medical schools. He shut down any sort of holistic healing that practices that any medical doctors were doing. discredited that and pushed the pharma angle. He turned our education system where critical thinking was kind of pushed out, and we turned into rote memorization, memorize, regurgitate, and then when you just turn into just repeating what you're taught, you how do you know what you taught is actually valid, true? It's and it's and he's yeah, between him and Edward Bernays, who was the father of modern marketing, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew, I believe, who in the United States he turned basically advertising into this evil conglomerate, and it's another thing that's been huge on my healing journey is that I almost never watch TV, and I don't really listen to the radio. I listen to streaming music channels and things like that, and YouTube and social media things instead. Because it's not only are they doing sort of placements of things to basically brainwash us into just being good consumers rather than being producers and creatives. They're also sending like subliminal messages, and it's pretty evil. Actually, I believe it was under Obama where the federal government can legally use propaganda against American citizens now. That became an executive order. So it's undeniable that they are propagandizing us like blatantly, and not for our benefits. Really, it's for the government and for the elites' benefits. So yeah. But anyways, get off that high horse. I could talk about Rockefeller for like an hour. But I did want to make a few corrections at things that I said in the last podcast. I said my Uncle Lowell fought in World War One, but he actually fought in World War Two. It was my the man who raised me, his father, the man I call my grandfather, who was a veteran in World War One. And then I said that pharmaceutical ads on TV only occur in Australia and New Zealand. I meant to say New Zealand and the United States, whereas New Zealand has some restrictions. Australia doesn't have those. You also asked if there were lots of Masons in my family, and I pointed to my grandfather Garber, to the man who raised me, to my sister, likely my mother, are both Eastern Star. But there are tons actually when as I reflect on that, either by marriage or actually in it, that my family's littered with people associated with secret societies, high-ranking members, no doubt. So, and then I also wanted to say to where I kind of have this intuition that I was born on the 7th of July rather than the 8th. The only reference my mom has ever made to her pregnancy with me or any of the birthing is that she was like, I always was hoping that you would be born on the 4th of July. So that kind of gives a little bit more credence to the belief that I wasn't born on the 8th, but rather sooner, if she was hoping to expect me on the 4th, and I was born later. So, anyways, I just wanted to clarify those points. And I also, the other thing I wanted to clarify is that I firmly believe that I know that our federal government and other nefarious parties have completely fabricated our drug problems, be it the crack epidemic, the current opiate crisis, and the fentanyl problem. And that we need to decriminalize drugs. I also want to make it really, really clear that I am not an advocate for certain drugs. I'm not an advocate for hardcore opiates. I'm not an advocate for methamphetamine. I'm not an advocate for crack or even cocaine. I'm not an advocate for addicted behavior, be it drugs, alcohol, or even basically anything, gambling, or anything that you take to the extreme where it controls your life. It's not good. Because when you're not in control, and even money, greed, it's like when you're not in control, you can be manipulated. And that's not a power position to be in. No matter what your addiction is, be it fame, fortune, porn, hedonism, sex addiction, it's those are that's where you kind of let evil in. So, but I firmly believe though that somebody should not be punished for putting something into their bodies. It's not the drugs that inherently make people bad. It's the system that does, and that punishes people for putting things into their bodies, and actually pushes them covertly, like without their knowledge. It kind of encourages them to go down that road, because when I've been doing, let's just call it my field research, when I was using hard drugs, when I got pushed down that alley, every single hardcore user, be it opiates or meth or crack, that I met, they had horrific trauma histories, like horrific. Like every single one, every single story you heard, it would just break your heart. And they're all trying to just not feel, and to not be remember those pains, and to not have any of that. And they're just running from their traumas. And that's also been by design. That we don't have effective trauma treatments really available to the general population. I already mentioned the ibogaine, promising aspects of ibogaine in the last one, for treatment of PTSD and addiction. But it's that unfortunately a lot of great psychedelics like psilocybin or Schedule One drugs, and that prevents pretty much stifles all research from being done on these. Even cannabis is a Schedule One drug. These drugs are deemed more, according to the scheduling that Nixon put in back in 1970, are worse than meth and heroin and cocaine, which is lunacy. And it's largely been done to stifle the clinical properties, the clinical benefits of these many of these drugs, and we need the appropriate research, mass amounts of research on various psychedelics and the clinical properties that they can do for healing either trauma or even physiological problems, so. I wanted to clarify that I'm not saying, hey, let's just have a big old party and, it's in 2025 here. But, there's something, an interesting study. They studied rats, or no, mice, I'm sorry, in like the 90s or something. And they would put a mouse in a cage, and where they had a water bottle, two water bottles. One was regular water, another was water with cocaine in it. And it was just a plain old cage. And that in this plain old cage, the mouse would hit the water bottle with the cocaine in it until its paws were bloody and stuff, just trying to get as much of it as possible. Well, there was a follow-up study after that hey, why don't we do this again with the same two bottles, but this time let's put in a wheel that the mouse can run on and all this other stuff where it can like play and adventure and things. And guess what? In this environment that was rewarding, and where the mouse could engage with its environment, it didn't touch the cocaine, let alone did it push it to the point that its paws got bloody. That can apply to people, that if we provide a stronger middle class like we used to have in the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, and that we have a better educational system, better vocational training, things like that, and better trauma treatments and stuff, then we won't have that people won't be using to cope with their trauma and stuff. They'll actually have dreams that they can actually achieve with family and stuff like that, and community and stuff, and career, which would be fantastic. I mean, I think everybody can get behind that, so it's putting people in prison for nonviolent offenders for putting a drug in their body or selling a drug is just ridiculous, I think.
Well, and
But
especially,
clearly, if somebody commits a violent crime or steals and turns into a derelict with the drugs, then obviously they need to be punished for that.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we punish drug users and drug dealers far more than we do rapists and stuff. It's like,
You're so
how does
right
that add
about
up,
that.
guys?
Yes. And I love that you brought some humanity to addicts because you're absolutely right. You never meet an addict that is so just thrilled with their life and so
Hmm.
happy. These are
Yeah,
really dark situations that
yeah,
compel somebody to pick up something like that. And like you said, most people, the majority of people who do take a substance are trying to escape something. They're trying to
right.
not feel, they're trying to turn off whatever it is internally or externally that is, just making them feel so low and so depressed and so sad and so, just all these negative emotions. We're making fun of people and penalizing them for making these choices, but like we're not ever asking why somebody made that choice. And it's the same thing in those industries too. A lot of them are trauma, sexual abuse, trafficking survivors and victims. And, you see a lot of people that pick up drugs that have similar paths like that, where they've gone through really, really hard things that they just can't cope with. They don't have the tools and resources or even money a lot of times to, get help and to cope with it. And it's sad. It's so sad, and the fact that a lot of these people, even, I remember living in Las Vegas and you always see these kind of like drugged out people standing on the corners asking for money. People just make fun of them. And it's like, when's the last time we asked that person what their name was? When's the last time we said, how are you doing?
Right.
When's the last time we said, do you need somebody to talk to? Like, it
Right.
makes me almost want to cry just thinking about like how we dehumanize
Yeah.
people who make choices that like we just don't understand as a society, and
Yeah.
we end up letting them down. We're letting these people down by not caring about them. We stop caring about them and like we look at them as like less than human when
Hmm.
they're probably suffering like more than most humans on the whole planet.
Absolutely. There is so much suffering on the bottom, especially since nobody's taking accountability at any level and they're all projecting it to
Yep.
whoever's below them. And so when you're on the bottom, it's like everything's just like projected onto you and you're seen as a parasite of society. And I also wanted to make another point. What was it? I just lost it. I'll come back to it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's like I'm not saying we need to decriminalize drugs so that we can have just a bunch of drug users. No, no, we need to try to provide richer lives and more healing for the people so that drugs become irrelevant. Oh, I know what I was going to say is that semi-political statement is that now Trump is I guess put tariffs on Canada and Mexico because of fentanyl coming into the country. Well, anybody who knows basic supply and demand economics and stuff, well, it would be a prohibition with alcohol and stuff. Like making alcohol illegal did not get rid of alcohol or any of the problems associated with alcohol in America's history when we made it illegal constitutionally. And so that just went down to the underground instead, and was run by these mafioso guys, right? And then brought a real seedy element to it. Didn't stop people from drinking. So, and the same is true that well, if you declare war on these cartels in Mexico, well, something else is going to emerge. There's going to be a new supplier somewhere else, and you're just shifting, where the supply is coming from. What you need to do is attack and the demand. Like if we heal these people and provide them better lives and better opportunities, then we take away the demand, and then the suppliers are out of business.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
know, it's by placing tariffs on other countries for their drugs coming into our country. It's ridiculous. The same thing happened with meth. It's meth was largely manufactured by biker gangs and stuff in the United States until we put all these restrictions where people couldn't get the necessary ingredients in the United States to make it here, and that just got shipped off to Mexico. And look at the problem we have now. You know, it's just shifting the problem to another group. That suppliers are going to somebody if there's a demand, suppliers are going to surface. So
100%. Yes.
yeah,
That's really important, everything that you just said. And I just want to thank you again because unfortunately in these communities, a lot of people go through that and have felt less than human, and I appreciate you speaking on behalf of them and, helping people listening have a more compassionate and empathetic way to look at people who are suffering and to realize that trauma doesn't always have, and, abuse doesn't always have to look like somebody laying a hand on somebody in front of you. It can literally be the person sitting outside with a cup saying, "Do you have any money?" And that we need to look at people for the root cause of what got them somewhere instead of just judging them by what we see in front of us, and making assumptions that likely are not true. Those are likely not people consciously and happily choosing to do something, like use drugs or, enter the adult entertainment industry, for example. These are probably like very hurt humans who feel like they don't belong anywhere else and that's their only value, that's what they're worth. I work in the cannabis industry and it's so like it makes me so mad that there's still people locked up for having like a little eighth of weed in their pocket when, a pedophile served way less time and is back on the streets again after violently offending a child, that there's somebody that took a substance that's in jail. They didn't hurt anybody, but maybe themselves because they were hurting. And,
Right.
the
Exactly.
pedophile and the violent offenders who belong in prison are
Mhm.
getting let out and they're getting
Mhm.
lighter sentences. And it's like, why even schedule it as, like, why don't we have that same scheduling for, pedophiles and these other
Right.
offenders? Like, it's just ridiculous. You know what I
It's,
mean?
it's it's completely ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's completely illogical, but it's become our culture, and everybody just sort of accepts it because, well,
Yeah.
it's just the way things are.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't have to stay that way. Once people can actually recognize how ridiculous it is, you need to get to the root cause of the issue. What's driving the addiction? What's driving the maladaptive behavior? Or what's driving your poor health?
Yeah.
It's like, let's get to the root cause. If you have a parasitic infection that's denied, let's treat it. If you have an addiction fueled by trauma, let's treat it. But it's like many of these treatment centers and stuff, they just profit about not fixing you. It's this revolving door. Like, hey, you know, it's like family, write me a $50,000 check and I'll take in your son or daughter for a month and we'll fix everything. And they believe the system's going to help their child, where most of these treatment centers are just money laundering scams. They're awful. They're
Oh,
awful.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Even like obesity and, seeing somebody that looks unhealthy on their outside, we judge them too instead of saying, why is that person eating so much or what health issues could they be struggling from to where their weight is inflating?
right,
It's just really sad in general, like how we've lost so much empathy for people who are suffering.
right.
And we just judge them and point our finger and like laugh at them or look down on them and like dehumanize them instead of, seeing it for what it actually is that we're looking at trauma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Trauma is is
It
critical.
is, yes. Yep.
It's the key player. It's really the common factor that through dysfunction in all societies. But yeah, let's switch gears or whatever. Go back to talking about my life, I guess, maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Um, anybody who hasn't seen the first episode, I was born into MK Ultra and basically covert government. I was a lab rat, medically and otherwise. Anyways, but it hasn't been limited to the American government. I was intentionally parasitized in China in 2005, and I made a whole YouTube on that under the Matchbox 939 one. And I've also had various run-ins with likely Mossad agents, the secret or the intel agency for Israel. And so I wanted to talk about some of those maybe, kind of in reverse chronology, starting with the most recent and how I've sort of pieced it together that they're Israelis that have been sort of tailing me, kind of sabotaging me along the ways of my life. Um, so this summer, as I mentioned, I was in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm currently in Texas, but I was in Tucson And I went out with this woman, a young woman who I didn't know all that well or whatever. And she was paid to love bomb me and stuff by my family, likely with gift cards or something, and part of the targeting program. Well, interestingly, we went to this bar in downtown Tucson, this hole in the wall. And then there was this man, younger than me or whatever, who was love bombing me even more. And so all these people have like my file. They know my likes, my dislikes. They know how to butter me up. They know how to, play with my emotions. They've been trained. Before they ever meet me, they know exactly what strings to pull and stuff. And anyways. So this one guy, he's just like over the top, and then the girl I went with or whatever, she was just like, "Oh, why is he like getting like so much better at this than I am?" Well, he's probably a trained intel guy who's a spy or whatever. So we go outside for a cigarette, and he's like, "Do you know any jokes? Do you know any jokes?" And I was like, I'm not really good at canned jokes. My humor is sort of like in the moment. I like to do puns, plays on words, things like that. He's like, well, let me tell you some jokes. I was like, cool, man, I'd love to hear some jokes. And so he's like, so, why is it that illegal immigrants can only cross at the southern border from Mexico in groups of two or four? I was like, I don't know why. He's like, no trespassing. You get it? Trespassing. Do you get that joke? And I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, all right, that's kind of funny that you can't go in groups of three trespassing. I was like, all right, that's pretty funny. Then he followed that up with this awful Holocaust joke of ashtrays and babies. I was just like, I was in the greatest mood, right? I had been buttered up. I was like in a really fun mood, and it just killed my mood. And as I reflect, the man was recording all of this, and he wanted me to like have some sort of reaction of like, and sort of frame me as an anti-Semite, of getting pleasure of like Holocaust jokes or something. I was just like, anyways, I remember going back. I was just like, my whole energy was ruined after that joke. It was just like, I was like, oh, just bad taste, man, bad form. And I went back in the bar, and he was down on the other side of the bar. I saw him, and I still felt bad. I was like, dude, that was a really tasteless joke. And he's like, you know, anyways, so then when I left, I fled Tucson to get away from my family's grips and came to Texas. Well, when I got into the city I went to this homeless shelter because I showed up with a backpack and nothing else. I had no money, nothing, like flat broke. And didn't know anybody here. It's a long story how I ended up here. I kind of think of this as my Nineveh, where I was supposed to end up. And so I show up at this homeless encampment, and there's this guy who's waiting outside. It was like I got here in a Greyhound and walked over to the homeless encampment or shelter, and got there and tried to get in. And there was another young man waiting, and he was allegedly Latin or whatever, didn't speak English very well and stuff. And anyways. And I couldn't get in, and they told us to wait outside. So I'm like talking to this dude and stuff, and I'm not thinking much about it. And he's just playing off that his English wasn't very good, and we were having conversations and stuff. Anyways, I never got into the homeless services. I actually ended up homeless on the streets for a few months. It was really challenging. Nobody wanted to help me, and anyways, I overcame that obstacle. But it was about a week or two later, as I was just sort of replaying things in my mind. This guy had this big old beard at the homeless thing. It was the exact same guy at the Tucson bar who tried to frame me as an anti-Semite wearing a costume to be a different person. But it was the exact same guy. This guy trying to play, the other guy was an American trying to be like a hipster when I met at the bar in Tucson. Now here in Texas, it's this other, playing this, it was so likely a Mossad guy. It could have been CIA, but probably, I mean, like, why would a CIA guy try to frame me as an anti-Semite, right? So, and then also this summer when I was back in Tucson, I went to church on Sunday. And I was getting hit by direct energy weapons and parasites badly, badly. Like I couldn't listen to a thing of the service. I was just like really bad. And I had a lot of coffee before the service, so I really had to pee too in the middle of the service. So I had to get up and I was sort of in the middle. And I had to get up and go to the restroom and urinate. And I didn't want to go back to the same spot because I didn't want to disturb the congregation and the service and everything. So I went off to the side to go sit after I used the restroom. And as I sit, I pick this one spot, and I'm sitting behind just a single man, about 30 years old, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him, and so I've spent a lot of time around Israel and a lot of time around Israelis, be it in the Sinai Peninsula where they vacation often, or I went to high school with a lot of Israelis, not a lot, a few, and I've known Israelis here in the United States. Every nationality has a different vibe and different energy and stuff. So I'm sitting behind this guy after I've been just smacked with directed energy weapons and stuff and had this horrible brain fog. And I was like, oh my God, the guy sitting in front of me is totally Israeli. I was like, in church. I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? And like he didn't know when to clap, when to stand, when to sing, and stuff. And he was just a fish out of water. And I'm like, that had to have been divinely orchestrated. How did I go to the bathroom and end up sitting right behind a Mossad, likely Mossad agent, you know? And so for it was like another half hour left on the service, and I'm just sitting there analyzing this guy's energy and moves, and he was obviously uncomfortable, trying to play it off like he was, cool. And I shared that on social media, and I got confirmation indirectly that it was a Mossad agent. Now, again, like just like much of my social media has gone viral and I've been getting feedback from it, it's all been indirectly. So I've gotten confirmation that this was the Mossad targeting me. So here in the United States, when I go back to and I started reflecting on my past before that and my international travels. Well, when I was in China in 2005. After I taught English for a couple months, I went and with a friend, we backpacked and took the train out the Silk Road all the way to far northwestern China. And Interestingly, on this trip, we ran across a couple, an young Israeli couple, military age, that were backpacking down the Silk Road. Now, they're very few. This is off the beaten path. There are almost no Western tourists or anything like that. But here I am, hanging out with military-age Israelis traveling under the European passports because all these people have European passports from the Holocaust and like they were awarded them. All right, so that's interesting. And so they were likely parasitizing me and hitting me with direct energy weapons there in China. And then one time when 1999, when I was living in Cairo the second time studying Arabic intensively, in Egypt, I went with a Norwegian friend. We went up to the Siwa Oasis out in northwestern part of Egypt in the Sahara. This oasis is really beautiful and stuff. And then we met a bunch of other backpackers. There was a French man, a Japanese man, and this Israeli couple, military age, traveling under their European passports. Now, Israel represents about 0.1% of the world's population. Not too many Israelis aren't allowed to really, it's almost impossible for an Israeli to travel to mainland African continent part of Egypt. They can go to the Sinai Peninsula, which is technically in Asia, but they can't go to mainland Egypt very easily. It's not a common destination spot for Israeli tourists, let's say. So the chances of me running across more likely Mossad agents, be it in China or in the Sahara Desert. It's just wild. And the group of us, my Norwegian friend, this Frenchman, and the Japanese guy, and this Israeli couple, we chartered a couple of SUVs to go from one desert oasis to the other. And we slept in on sand dunes and on the desert in the middle of the night. Well, it's likely the Mossad's been keeping tabs on me for a very long time. So this goes back to 1999. So 1999, 2005 to 2024. It's pretty wild. And I know the CIA and the FBI and other intelligence agencies have also been tagging me. And I know this probably sounds ridiculous to most people, but it's it's wild. When I reflect on my life, it's just like I've been a guinea pig. And I have to wonder, like, why am I that important? What makes me so special? I don't know. But anyways, well, I know ever since now that I've been attacking Western medicine and our broken medical system and all this other stuff and big pharma and exposing all this corruption, it's very clear to me why they want me silenced now. But why did they want me silenced back then? Or why did they want to?
Well,
Anyway,
if I could comment,
yeah, please.
I think I think that's a question a lot of abuse survivors especially have about their childhood. It's like, why me? Like, why? And it's not necessarily feeling special or important. Like, I know that that's not what you mean.
Yeah,
It's almost like, why would you pick on me? Like, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I'm not a bad person. Like, why do you care about me so much? Like, go focus on somebody else,
right.
And but here's the thing, like they know you are special. That's why. They know that you're bright, that you're brilliant, that you can interact with the world and see things differently than other people. They know that you can help people. They know that you're brilliant and that you can bring great ideas to life. And you're the exact opposite of who they are. They have broken spirits and they want to drag everybody down with them. And they knew that you couldn't be broken, that your spirit exceeds anything that they could ever do to you. And so you are a mere threat to the satanic empire that they have created. And that's what makes you so important. And it's important in a way that brings humanity forward. You're important to the bright side, to the light, to progressing humanity in a way that they never can, and progressing humanity to that higher consciousness and to that higher dimension of love that they'll never attain because they're in hell stuck with their toxicity, negative emotions, and evil.
Right.
So I just want to say you are special, you and everybody that has been targeted. It's not because you're a crappy person or because you deserve it. It's because you are a threat to them because they have built something for so long that you and others have the capability of destroying because you are unbreakable when other people have succumbed to the evil that you never did. So I just want to say that you are special, Gregory, and you're a blessing. And I know why they're after you, and I'm cheering you on. And so are so many people because they're never going to break you. They're as much as they try and they're going to keep trying. You are unbreakable and you're somebody that will never be brought down to their level. And that is exactly why they target you.
Right, exactly. If I haven't broken by age 50, I'm not going to break, guys. It's
Yeah, survivors are,
yeah,
as much
yeah,
as like we do worry about you guys, of course we want you safe. We don't want you targeted, going through health issues, being abused. I also think that you are the people that we almost need to worry about the least in a sense because you're so strong. Like we need to learn our own strength through you guys, and then help you along the way, of course. But you guys are going to help us become stronger and help humanity grow in a way that, has never been done before. So yeah, I really think that, the abominable strength that you and others have is just, it's otherworldly. Like they're never going to break you. And that's exactly why they're coming after you.
and it's something about the bloodline too.
Exactly. Yes.
Without a doubt, without a
Yes.
doubt. Like I mentioned in the previous podcast, they've been targeting my family. There's something special about my family, and we never mentioned that I'm my uh, great great uncle, I guess it was Admiral Robert E. Peary, who was arguably the first person to lead an expedition to reach the center, or to reach the North Pole, the true North Pole. Now there's as these conspiracy theories begin to spiral and grow, there's something really special about the Arctic and the Antarctic that I'm learning. And I haven't really connected all of those dots, but there's something about my bloodline with that's also really critical that I'd like to find out one day, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And then there's those elements too that they target for bloodlines, they target for spiritual gifts, they target
Yeah,
for certain characteristics or traits that you have, your
yeah,
brilliance. There's so many reasons why, but that's like the inverted part, right? Like you think about how these people take the really amazing parts of you, whether it's biological or spiritual, familial, if it's like, a bloodline type thing, genetics, they take the most beautiful things about you and the things that do make you special, and they try to exploit and invert them instead of growing them to be used for their intent that you were born or that God
right,
gave you to
right.
use them. That's the sad part. And then people end
It
up
is.
the abuse makes them so ashamed of all those things that are so beautiful about
Right.
themselves. It's really sad.
Yeah, God put each of us on here for a special purpose. I truly believe when we live our authentic lives and we go to our own beat and our own compass rather than conforming to what others want and stuff, that's how we fulfill God's purpose for us. And yeah, so
Exactly.
and you can go off course, but eventually, if you really stay true, man, you'll get back on course, and that's what I'm doing. So.
You're an inspiration, Greg. And I didn't mean to interrupt. You can go ahead and keep
No,
going.
no, no. Thank you. That was great. That was
Wanted
great.
to let it's important to recognize that because like I said, it's the stuff has a way of like sucking your soul out of your
Mm.
body and making you just feel worthless, which is what they want. They don't want you to know how
Yeah.
special you are, but we always have to
Um,
come back and remember that the reason why they're targeting you is because you are exceptional.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in 96, my sister at her wedding, my man who became my brother-in-law, who's now my ex-brother-in-law, is Jewish, and after October 7th attacks on Israel from Hamas. He's a coder, computer programmer and stuff, and really big in the IT area. Well, he ended up going to Israel after October 7th, likely to either work with the IDF or the Mossad or any other type of agency. So he's been affiliated with that. And interestingly, I don't want to go into all the details of my sister's wedding and how that was just nightmare experience back in 96, I think it was 95 or 96. But it was bad, but I was being hit by direct energy weapons and parasites. So it was parasitization intentionally back then before I went. And then when I got there, I was likely not only with directed energy weapons can they make your cognition dulled and mimic depression and fatigue and all these other things. Well, principle of duality, can't they also induce mania or euphoria with these directed energy weapons as well? I think that's exactly what happened at my sister's wedding, that I went from bedbound depression where I couldn't even leave my apartment for months to going to from Boston, going to San Francisco to being euphoric and just wanting to have a great time. Now I think this was directed by my ex-brother-in-law, who was the groom at this wedding, and his friends, who are likely have affiliations with either the IDF or Mossad or whatever. And that's I've been completely oblivious to all of these things my entire life until my awakening back about a year and a half ago, and then I've just been connecting all these dots now.
Yeah, then you look
Uh,
back and it's like, oh wait, that wasn't an accident that happened, and that was not,
yeah,
and that was
yeah.
not a
That was
coincidence.
coordinated. It was like,
Right.
yeah, it's so diabolical when after you wake it up, you're like, wow, wow. It's just unbelievable.
100%.
Another thing is like when I was a freshman at Boston University, that I didn't have like I've always been a really agreeable, fun person, get along with everybody. there was just a couple of my freshman year. I lived in Warren Towers, which is this huge dormitory of like 1,800 freshmen in one building. It's three different towers. It's enormous. BU has a huge Jewish contingency and stuff, and I chose BU for its international flair and all this other stuff, and wanted to be in an urban environment. But it's the only people who had issue with me my freshman year were like, I hate to say this, but they were Jewish. I remember when Schindler's List came out. I was like, oh yeah, I want to see that, man. The Holocaust, what a terrible experience and stuff. And I wanted to be supportive. And like, there's this one one woman named, or young woman, I guess she was 18 at the time, named Rachel. And she was like talking to my roommate and buttering him up, and like who he ended up becoming a Freemason and New World Order and stuff and all this other things. And but he she was just cold with me, just like, and I had nothing but empathy and sympathy for the Holocaust, and I don't condemn any group, and I still to this day with being tracked by the Mossad and all this other covert harm I've gone through, like I'm not anti-Semitic. Like I've known some great people who are Jewish, that typically secular Jews, that are just fantastic people. And so like people that just want to say, oh, it's their fault, or it's like, no, okay, it's like let's get the evidence, let's get the data and see how each person is involved in all this, and before you can't just, no group is a complete like monolith like structure of like evil and stuff. There are a lot of people I follow on X that are just like pushing everything as this Jewish conspiracy, and a big part of it, I believe it's a Zionist conspiracy, but I want to make that distinction between Zionism and those who follow Jude or are born into Judaism. A lot of them don't even practice, but they it's such a weird religion where we're ethnic group. It's a religion and an ethnic group of its own. That's like really strange, but it's. That there are great Jewish people out there, and we don't need another Holocaust. But we do need to hold the people that are doing horrible offenses and harm and satanic stuff, satanic rituals and pedophilia and all that. We need to hold these people responsible. But
Totally.
but the, but the people aren't involved who are Jewish, they deserve quality lives too.
Exactly. That's a
Yeah.
great point. And I think we have a habit of doing that to a lot of different, maybe sectors of people, whether it's a racism driven thing or even just in our own community,
Yeah.
let's just say Freemasons. As
Yeah.
much as we want to hate them because there's a lot of evil that's being done in that organization, we also have to realize that, probably like 95% of the people who become Freemasons are probably just men looking to connect with other men and
Hmm.
have, a
Hmm.
social outlet and
Right.
to be able to have a brotherhood. And
Right.
unfortunately, that 5% taint the entire thing because a lot
Right.
of that goes to the top. But do we
Right.
penalize every single Freemason? No, we get the bad eggs out
Right.
and we don't penalize every single person just because they intended to get into it for a reason that was positive for themselves. They're not the
Right.
ones, doing satanic rituals and committing
Exactly.
crimes. They're going to share, you know, brotherhood talks and to have
Yeah.
bonds with other men, and to
Yeah.
have a social hour outside of out of home. And, it's the same thing for these other races or groups or however we want to divide things. Like
Right.
just saying a whole sector of people is bad because there's bad people in it is doing a great disservice, and it's never going to amount to anything other than just extreme hate. And like you said, another Holocaust potentially, something that's just going to damage a whole and penalize and potentially kill a lot of very innocent people
Right.
who are being thrown into, a criminal sector that only involves certain people. We should be going after those people committing the crimes and not just labeling it's a Jewish thing or it's a black
Right.
thing or it's a
Right.
Freemason thing or it's a white person thing. Like,
Right. Right.
no, it's a criminal thing and we need
Right.
to
Right.
criminals.
Totally. Exactly. Exactly. It's so refreshing, guy. Be on the same page.
Yeah, no, I see that too a lot on Twitter, and I'm just like, you guys, like you're getting sucked. It's like the same political
Yeah.
stuff, like red or blue. Like if
Hmm.
if I'm blue and you're red, then all the reds are bad and all the blues
Right.
are good. And it's like, you
Right.
guys, come
Right.
on, like this is so ridiculous. Like let's just all come together, throw
Yeah.
those labels away, and let's just
Yeah.
all go after criminals and pedophiles. Like that's all we have to do, and
Yes.
we'll find them, and then we don't have to, penalize every single person. Like let's just all put our efforts in and go after them, and that's it. Like it's not
Right.
that hard.
Right. Right. Exactly. It really isn't. Once we start finding, pointing out all the atrocities and finding the guilty persons and parties, well, then let's hold them accountable but not, anybody that might be in an organization affiliated with them.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Let's all come together and go after the
Yeah.
criminals,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we can bond with our differences and not just hate each other because of it. Let's
Yeah.
pour that effort and that hate and that anger and that rage into bringing down the people that are ruining things that should be good for us,
Yeah.
because that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember because my sister converted to Judaism when she married my former brother-in-law. And my nieces and nephew are Jewish, and like I just like I don't want to see any harm come to them because of like some bad seeds up top. They're great people. I was about to say kids, but they're adults now. And it's just I remember when my niece was the oldest of them. I visited them. They were living in San Francisco at the time, or no, they were living in Berkeley. And going to a Jewish service, a temple, it was really community based, and it was a lot of fun, just lots of singing, and it was just a really great environment. And I'd sit there, sing along, just celebrating the love and the community that was provided there. And interesting, the rabbi who married my sister was Michael Lerner, who was very much he was sort of he's passed recently, I think, but he was a very um, controversial figure in the Jewish community because he was a rabbi who was pro two-state solution and that the Palestinians deserve their state and their rights and full autonomy, and that we can live together in peace. And that's those are the type of message that I resonate with, and so. It doesn't matter when I've been traveling internationally, be it in Muslim countries, Christian countries, Catholic, Orthodox, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. It's like you just need to find the good people who it's I don't hate anybody for anybody's spirituality or divinity or the religious practices on any grounds. But bad people are bad people, and there's evil out there on all every part of the globe. There's evil, and the evil needs to be held accountable. So
Yes, that's exactly right. And I appreciate you having that stance too. It's refreshing on my end also, just because I see so many people that like just despise and show so much hate for these specific, and certain groups of people. And it's like, man, that's so horrible that you're penalizing 100% of the people for probably 1% of the people that you actually don't like, and that you're like bringing down all these people. It's the same even in our community when you see people like discrediting a survivor, discrediting somebody's experience, or, making fun of somebody's abuse. Like you do that to one person, you're doing it to everybody else who had a different, a similar experience. And, you're causing harm yourself. Like it's a crime to do that to other people, to just throw them in a box because of how they look, or how they identify religiously or politically, or what they believe. And we need to stop that. I feel like labels are just so harmful. I wish we could go to a day where we didn't have them, and like where we weren't conditioned, I guess, to just like label somebody
right,
and to judge them automatically. I think
right,
if we all just like, if humanity could all just come together in a big room
right,
and not have any labels, not be wearing anything showing, allegiance to any political party or sports team or whatever it is, religion, or if we could all just be covered in masks so we couldn't see each other's skin, and we just all talked and didn't talk about any of that stuff, we'd realize how much we all have in common. And like, we'd probably all really get along and agree that the only people we all don't like are just the people in the world that are making the world evil for us, and that are actually the real criminals,
It's become so tribal, politics and
Yes.
everything else.
Good
It's
word.
just it's and they've done that intentionally to play to our tribal tendencies,
Yeah.
that 'cause we are primates, and that we're very evolved primates, but we're still primates and we still have that tribal thing that like we're still evolving as a species and sort of emerging into sort of this, and we need to let go of these tribal tendencies and start finding commonalities and unity and being like, hey, it's I don't know that the group mentality, it's us versus them is it's a broke mentality. It was necessary probably evolutionarily speaking, thousands of years ago, but today it's broken way of thinking.
Yes. They turned us against each other, so we forget that we need to come together and turn against them,
Right,
They do
right,
everything they can to make me hate you and you hate me instead of us being
right.
like, wait a minute, like, why are they making us hate each other? Like, they're
Yeah,
the
yeah,
bad people.
yeah,
We shouldn't have a problem with each other. Like, we're friends, Like,
yeah,
it's them trying to create the problem. We need to go after them,
yeah,
So
yeah.
it is refreshing though, seeing more and more people start turning a corner in that evolution,
Mhm.
mentally and spiritually to sort of see through that. I am seeing a lot more of it, especially on platforms like X, where people are genuinely having, discernment to stuff now and, trying to think about, all right, they tell us that we can only vote for red or blue. And of course, there's like the middle of that's on the ballot. But is there a different option? Like, is there something else?
Mhm.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
don't have to even participate, like
Mhm.
there's options they don't even tell us about. We can make up our own options for what we want. We just forget
Right.
that. Like they corner us and condition us to think that the only ways are their ways. It's only red
Mhm.
or blue. It's
Mhm.
only black or
Mhm.
white. It's only Pepsi or Coke,
Right.
like there's only two options always,
Right.
Walmart or
Right.
Target. And it's like, no, you
Right.
guys, like we can evolve past that. Like there's always more
Right.
options. We just have to use our imaginations, be creative, and spiritually be able to take ourselves out of that mind control program, and realize that we've been lied to, we've been conditioned. There's
Right.
way more than just the ways that they've told us, and
Yeah.
we don't need to hate each other to get through that cycle. We can leave if they want to go fight and create evil and do whatever. Let's throw all them on an island and they can go ahead and do what they can go ahead and do their
Exactly.
rituals. They can have their hierarchy. They can do whatever they want, and we can go build the world that we want,
Right.
and make our own reality that's better than theirs.
Right. Right. Exactly. 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 I know we said we wanted to talk about sort of university elites and things like that. I wanted to talk about my LSD druggings and other druggings and things, but that seems kind of heavy today. After everything we've already been discussing, and I wanted to get to some of the media the stuff I've documented of my parasitosis and things. I also wanted to say that. After doing the podcast a little over 2 weeks ago, right, that we did, I was hit bad with direct energy weapons. Well, first of all, my internet went out, of course, which was planned, of course, and then so the tech had to come from my internet service provider, and then after the tech did whatever he did here, then that's when my directed energy attacks escalated where just crippling brain fog and exhaustion and all this other stuff. So likely, the whoever with my internet service provider is complicit in my targeting and all that other stuff. Also, my parasitosis and my biofilm and skin symptoms and all this other stuff ramped up. But I'm not going to be slowed down or dismayed from sharing my story because if I do, then they win. What I need to do is share what I know and my experiences and get this out there on the record because that's what they're trying to prevent, and so whenever my symptoms escalate, then I know that I'm on the right track. It's funny because they kind of have to tell us when we're on the right track. It's that they try to shut us down, and that just pushes me even further to keep going. And so the past couple of days, things have improved dramatically, but we'll see after this. But I'm like, bring it, guys. It's like I'm battle tested. I've been I've gone through a lot more than basic training. You know, I'm war tested on this stuff, and I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to shut down. I'm not going to be quiet, remain silent, and in any of this stuff. So. But yeah, let's I maybe show some of the parasite stuff, and then afterwards I can talk more about some. I thought of a bunch of other healing things or stuff that I've used in my healing journey that have really helped me. So if maybe you want to pull up some of that.
Yeah. Do you want me to just maybe click on a picture and then we can just
Yeah,
go
it's just
through
the
that?
first one, and then yeah, we can sort of scroll through it. This was I was living with my parents in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is a concrete floor that had paint on top of it. Well, guess what got caught in the paint or whatever and ended up dying? And those look like worms to me. And this was March of 2020. And this is before I knew how to document them. My family was gaslighting me and blaming me for the damage to the floor and all these other things, which is ridiculous. And denying all my symptoms and looking at me like I'd lost my mind and really just a rough time. But it's pretty obvious that those are worms. Go to the next one, I guess. This one is this is when I realized that I can better document these. This was in my the sink of an apartment in Albuquerque about a year later that I followed. Sorry for this is zoomed in and stuff, so I'm real shaky and stuff. But you follow this thing, and it's like really crazy. That it almost looks like a dragon, you know, a water
Yeah.
dragon or something. That's it does some crazy things. And I was just like, wow. And so this is when I realized that I can you can identify these things visually in water much better than you can on hard surfaces and things. And watch this thing kick its tail right here. Is it right there? Oh no, here it comes. Yeah, just, like hits whatever object that is in the water. I don't know. It's just really wild.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, it's some sort of worm, like a tapeworm or something. It's real thin. Let me go to the next one,
And
maybe.
this was in a sink, you said?
Yeah, it was in a sink. I rubbed this off of my skin and
Oh, wow.
flicked it towards the sink.
I see.
So this was on me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is one of those sort of what are they called? Those glue boards that you get like catch like mice or insects on and stuff. So I started placing these around my apartment because obviously the worms are going to be on the floor, right? And so they are going to have a hard time with these adhesives. There you can see kind of I used like the pot tool, and you can kind of see the outline of these things, but this wasn't enough to convince anybody that that I had parasitosis at this point. And then maybe the next one. This is likely a horsehair worm. A lot of these worms aren't necessarily just translucent or transparent. Some of them look like hairs. And if you watch this thing, this is
Whoa.
recorded, I believe, with an iPhone. Actually, this was before I got a microscope. And you notice nothing is moving in this water except for this hair. And watch it bend. And this goes on for like 4 minutes. It's
How?
really creepy. And so if this was on the floor, it would totally look like a hair to you, and you would just ignore it, or on your bedding or something. But
That's what
look
I was
at it.
going to ask. Like, how big? What is this zoomed in a lot, or else is this
It,
sort of?
it's I can't remember because this was 2021.
Okay.
Again, these are pretty much in chronological order. So this was I got an empty like yogurt container, like one of those not maybe quart or whatever those pint things of yogurt are, and I just I swept around my feet because these things come up on your feet and then they climb up and go into your other orifices, right? And so I started just sweeping around my feet and then taking the dustpan and dumping into the yogurt container with just some water, some tap water. and started filming it. And this was one of my first things that was like really like, whoa, what's going on? And if you zoom into like other parts, you can see little small, you can't right now, but it's up towards that top left. Yeah, see, like in the bottom there, there was a little black thing that was flying by, and they're just like a lot of little organisms in there moving around. It's not just the big thing. And it's I don't know. It's the problem is that I at this time, I was in complete fight or flight mode. Okay. When these things, when you have hundreds or thousands of these things crawling on you and inside of you, your body's freaking out. And you can't get any help from friends, family, or the medical community. You're being targeted. You have Masons all over your trail. It's really difficult to a lot of the documentation I did, I had to basically put my health in jeopardy in order to get these recordings. And then I would share them with people and nobody would care. I'm like, well, what's going on? But anyways, you get the point on this one. Maybe go to the next one. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. This is an intuitive process. This is when I finally got a microscope, and I wanted to show that I just did this, like I called it like a garage science or something, with $35 microscope from Amazon, digital microscope connected to my computer onto a small TV monitor thing or whatever. Anyway, so you can go to the next one. Um,
How big of a difference did this make? Would you encourage people to get a microscope like this over using a phone? Did it make a huge
Oh,
difference?
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Makes absolutely makes a huge difference. And I recommend getting doing looking at this stuff on water, not on your skin, not on
Okay.
you're not going to convince anybody on your skin really easily. But it's like these things here, they're really wild. I to this date I don't know what that is, but it's obviously very organic, but it almost looks man-made. It's almost like dendritic, but I don't know. It's wild. A lot of the stuff I didn't know what I was looking at, and then there are nanoparasites that are human-made parasites, government-made parasites that are controlled by like radio frequencies. It was a few months after I started recording these that my home was broken into. My apartment was broken into twice, ransacked, looted, and obviously my computer and my hard drive and all my recordings were stolen and everything else. And I basically was homeless for or largely living in hotels ever since October of 23. Uh, uh, and or what is that, 23? Whatever. It's been a long road.
Yeah.
Yeah, October 23. I ended my lease at the end of October 23, and this was right around my awakening of that everything is just more than meets the eye.
And I think that's neat too, that, I think when people think about maybe doing, I like your terming garage science, like in their home, they think it has to be like really expensive, and technology's come pretty far. You can get really good and sophisticated technology now for very affordable. And so that's great to hear that you were able to find something that produces this much clarity with just $35, so that's great. And maybe well, we'll have your social media links below. If people want to know exactly which one you got, they can reach out to you. Does that sound
Sure.
good? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. You want me to move on to the next one?
Sure. Please.
Wow, look at that. Just want to see this little close
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. There, you can barely see anything in the water without the
Yeah.
magnification. Like it just looks like water pretty much.
And
So,
I want to ask you too, whenever you were getting these things off your skin, how did you just like wash your face or your hands like into a container so it fell somewhere controlled, or how did you extract
well,
these?
the thing was that typically I would have so much biofilm and stuff, and that I would have hundreds, if not thousands, of worms or whatever these things are on me. So it was actually really easy to collect all this stuff. But I'll explain more on the next one. Well, that's just a still photo of what we were just looking at on the screen of these things that it's almost like dendritic. Like, look at that. It's just really.
Mhm.
It's kind of like almost like crystalline, like how it connects. It's really bizarre,
It
you know?
is. Yes, look at that.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost be if you didn't know the context of it, it's almost kind of like pretty in a way. It looks crystalline, but
Yeah, right, right.
to think that
Yeah,
these things can be like so damaging is pretty frightening too, and they can look so ugly or even like, kind of neat.
yeah. A lot of them are very mean. And let's go to the next one. Now this is with the microscope as well.
Mm.
Now look at that thing. Notice it using its digestive tract. Can you see that? Isn't that pretty spooky? Now, I don't know if this thing at the end, the bulb thing, is an egg sac or if it's a piece of skin it's feeding off of or what. I don't know if it's the head of the worm or, but that's clearly a translucent worm body. That is that I was wearing a nitrile glove. I was sitting there. I had that same setup with my garage science setup. And as soon as I got symptoms, I felt this thing right here on my right cheek, and I had a nitrile glove. I took the nitrile glove and rubbed my cheek, and then I flicked it towards that glass jar, and a clean glass jar that had been disinfected with just water, hot water, and flicked it a few times in there, and then I started videoing with the microscope and recording. And this is what I got. If you want to go to the next one, I did some editing.
Real quick too, have you been able to
Yeah.
identify? I know that there's so many parasites and so many names for them and like different types. Have you been able to identify specifically like any of these
Oh
or
yeah, for sure. I don't know which one this is. It's a
yeah.
round of some type, but we'll get into a little bit better into identification. So here I have some audio on this one.
Okay, let me.
Um, For nearly 5 years, I've been dealing with movement and biting on my skin, and well, I've been continually dismissed, saying, "Hey, it's all in your head." So this was taken. I shot this
Come here.
back in March of 2023 with using a digital microscope, and I felt,
Mhm.
I was prepared. I
Mhm.
had a clean glass jar filled partly with water, and 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 then I had the microscope sitting there prepared to record anything that might be there and say, hey, all right, I need to show the organic cause for what I feel on my skin, right? So, I felt it on my cheek. I was wearing the nitrile glove on my right hand, and it was on my right cheek where I felt it. So I rubbed my cheek, I flick it towards the jar a couple of times, and then I start recording. Well, this is the result, and you will see as I follow up this like filament structure that's like a worm that's transparent. You'll notice, and it uses its digestive tract, and so I pan up following its digestive tract, and then about 7 seconds and 13 seconds into the video, you'll see even more pronounced use of its digestive tract. So I would love to get some feedback on this, but let's go ahead and watch. Here comes the big one. It's pretty obvious, right? You can see that clear as day. Now, I would take this stuff to doctors and they would ignore me. Like, no, I kind of see what you're talking about. I'm like, okay.
Kind of like it's plain as day right there.
Yeah. I mean, how much better can you document something that's a transparent parasite, you know?
Exactly. Wow.
I thought that was pretty brilliant. And interestingly, this is when my life went to hell after I documented and shared this with doctors. This is when they gave me the full court press and were telling everybody that I was a known or suspected terrorist and all these other things. And only by the grace of God am I alive today. But anyway, so you want to go to the next one? I don't
Yeah.
know what's next. Oh, this is a flatworm. It looks like a tapeworm. Um, and this I sprayed the ground because right they're all on the ground coming for me. Well, if you spray it with hydrogen peroxide, the hydrogen peroxide's hopefully going to kill them or at least slow them down and eat away at their cellular bodies. And so this was a dead one that I just took a picture of and then obviously I dated that. And then you can keep going. Um, it's another angle of it. I mean, just look at that. It almost looks being a tapeworm. It almost looks like one of those old telephone cords cables, of it's real thin but wide thing or whatever. And there you can see the dot at the end, the head. It's I guess where all the nerve endings or whatever come together or something. That's these things are scary. And then next. And then this is it with just this was done with an iPhone and that's it not being zoomed in. I just wanted to give it that for context.
It's like right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did this, like, how did you extract this?
I didn't extract it. I just took a picture of it. These were on the floor. There were
No way.
hundreds of these things all over the floor coming for me.
Oh my gosh.
And so I sprayed the floor with hydrogen peroxide and started killing them. Even though I couldn't see them. And it was and like when I'm 6'3", so when I'm looking down, you can barely even tell that that's a worm. And I was like, huh, wait a second. Let me take a picture of that and zoom in a little. And I was like, oh wow. Okay. That's definitely a parasite.
That's
And then
terrifying.
I noticed that there were just hundreds of them on the floor.
Oh my gosh. And like you said, to think that you could just be walking around barefoot, going
Yeah.
about your day, and then these things are like
Well,
take you
shoes
in
aren't going to
place.
protect you either. It's actually worse to wear shoes because they climb in and go into your socks and your shoes, and it's really awful.
Oh my
Really
gosh, that's
awful. So I
terrifying.
started wearing sandals all the time, so I could just like kick off my shoes all the time and just hop in the shower, bathtub, and stuff. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
That's definitely a good thing for people to be aware of if they aren't, to be looking down on your floor and, cleaning constantly and like detoxing your floor just how you would your body.
yeah, yeah. And I started actually with that. There's like a Clorox multi-purpose cleaner with hydrogen peroxide in it, and that's what I started first, and then I just started just using straight up 3% hydrogen peroxide. But this is the back of my scalp. If you look at that sort of brown dot in towards the center left, that's the head of one of the worms. And I use some filters, and then you can see like a little body coming off of it and around towards the top. I don't know if you can make that out. Once you develop an eye for it, and like straight down the center, there's one going down. Those aren't hairs; those are worms, guys.
Mhm.
I don't know if you can see that. I think there's a video on the next one that I
Okay.
break it down.
Where is the volume? Was there volume on this one or no?
On the video, there is, yeah.
Okay, let me
But
see.
yeah, I mean, you can see right there that can you make out the head? The heads are the easy part to make out
Right
because it's
there,
real
right?
dark. Yeah, right there. And then if you go up to like 10 o'clock from the head, you can see the body coming off and then swirling down. So the heads are the easiest part to identify of these worms, and then from there you can identify other parts. Like right there, it's and then that's a body going straight down there in the center. And I would have hundreds of these things crawling around my scalp, saying, "Hey, you're just delusional, guy. Take this antipsychotic, you'll be better."
Wow, right. Yeah.
So
Look at this. Amazing to be
yeah.
able to get this footage. Did you take this video yourself of the back of your head?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I had to do all this myself. And a lot of times, I'm under extreme duress, and the longer I let this go without cleaning them off and combating them, the sicker I get. So I really had to take one for the team in order to document a lot of this stuff.
Oh my goodness, look at this.
And it was mind blowing when I would share it to people and they wouldn't care. They would just discredit. I just dismiss it. All.
It's like so new from what we're taught. We're not taught about like parasites and, different even like heavy metals and stuff. We're not taught about the different ways that our body can be poisoned or parasitic. Even doctors aren't, that's not something like a doctor really ever recommends. It's like,
Yeah, and certainly not a nurse practitioner or an RN, or even a PA, It's
Yeah, we're like you said, this should probably be one of the first protocols people do before relying on any type of other intervention is a detox of a lot of this stuff, you know?
yeah, absolutely.
You want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, next one, please.
Okay.
Um,
Now let
Now
me,
this was you can zoom out, please.
yeah, I'm trying to zoom out.
Um,
There,
This was, as you can see, waiting to get at urgent care to get seen, and then this is the next picture you just went to was now you can zoom in on that the ear a little. Um, there you go. I don't know if you can near my earlobe and stuff. Can you see those worms on there?
okay.
Those aren't hairs, guys. Those are worms. Um, that dark spot, like right there, just above the earlobe, and those are worms. Just crawling all over me while I'm waiting to be seen at urgent care where they never did anything for me.
And then this one, that was that same picture, just
Yeah, yeah, just
closer,
cropped
right?
in
Yep,
the same picture, just kind of give context that when you see somebody, it doesn't look like they have anything wrong with them, right? But if
totally.
you on a closer examination, it's very obvious that there's something very not right going on.
Oh my
That
goodness.
is not psychosis.
That is not psychosis.
That's not psychosis. This is a picture of flukes, right? The next picture is going to be graphic. So if you want, just look away. It's a piece of toilet paper that's got a fluke on it and a little mucus and blood on it. So
You
if
want
you're
to
squeamish,
explain what a fluke is real quick, and then I'll
a
flip.
fluke is a type of flatworm. It's a parasitic worm. It's in the same family as like tapeworms. But it's a different variety of flatworm than a tapeworm. Tapeworms are really long and thin, whereas flukes are sort of flat and thin and fat, kind of or wide. Yeah. And so this is a liver fluke that came when I was wiping without a bowel movement. That I just had a lot of mucus down under, and I wiped, and I was like, "What's that?" And I took it to the emergency department. Right after that, I put it in a jar, and they're like, "I think that looks like a mushroom." I was like, "That's not a mushroom, guy." And it tested positive for various multi-drug resistant organisms, and no doctor ever followed up with the lab results on it, and they did not identify this as a fluke. They just identified it as a gelatinous tissue that contained MDROs, multi-drug resistant bacteria. I was very sick. I was on death's doorstep at this point. Um,
That is, it looks like they take different sort of shapes and sizes too, huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like that one that we were, yeah, bottom left, right, like
Wow.
scary stuff, guys. That's not a very good picture, but there in my beard and stuff, you can kind of make out some worms in the dark spots. Um, but it's just insanity, man. Um, and there in the corner of my mouth, all those dark spots, those are all worms.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. These things are gunning for your mouth and your nostrils and your ears, behind your ears, in your ears. It's scary stuff. There you get my scalp. You can see pretty long ones there in my hairline. Basically, anybody with delusional parasitosis or a lot of people with Morgellons, we end up shaving our heads. A lot of times, these Freemasons or people paid by the hospital system sneak in and put things into your shampoo and stuff that make the worms more attracted to your areas that you shampoo. And
Wow.
so as a result, a lot of people end up cutting off their hair and stuff as a defense mechanism. It's really scary.
And would you have the same protocol for something like in the scalp? Like what have you found different ways to eliminate these or to keep them away? Or have you just found like one sterile protocol?
Yeah, I wanted to. I was going to go into more of the treatment stuff after
Oh,
this.
perfect. Okay.
When
Great.
yeah.
Okay, I won't get ahead
that
of
I've been
myself
doing.
then. We'll scroll
Sure.
through the photos.
And there at the top of my scalp, right there by my forehead, you can see those dark spots. Those are all worms. And you can see them on my t-shirt and stuff and around my beard area. It's wild. One that's going down looks from my forehead down to my nose.
Wow.
It's yeah, it's a black and white. I don't know. For me, all of these are obvious, clear as day. But for novel eyes, I don't know what's obvious and what isn't.
Totally. Yeah, it's fascinating seeing them too in like color and then the black and white too. That's neat that you presented both.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is one on, it was around Christmas time of 2023 or before, sometime in December. And I was staying at a hotel in Albuquerque, and I fried the floor. I couldn't see anything, but I felt things crawling on me. I started frying the floor with a butane torch, and I ended up with this sucker burned, which is obviously, it almost looks like a filarial worm. It's some type of round worm. It's wild. Um, this was also the same place, I believe. This is a towel I used, and when you zoom in, you can notice the heads with the dark spots are more like adult heads, and then you can notice like the little bodies coming off of them. Now, without the magnification and with an untrained eye, these things are nearly impossible to see and identify, especially if they're not crawling on you and they're crawling on somebody else.
Yeah, and
It's
like you
very
said,
easy to be like, well, they're not crawling on me, so clearly this person's crazy.
and even how you were saying, they can even just look like a hair or something. Like it could
Yeah,
be something you do see and you just overlook because you don't know what
right,
you're looking at.
right, exactly, exactly.
Do you want me to
And then
keep
you can
running
see
this
them like
one?
between the cracks of the bathroom floor there. It's like they're uh, ugh,
Oh,
thousands of these things. They just unleash on you with the intention of either making you sick or killing you. This at this point they wanted me dead. The powers that be, right?
you want to keep watching this one? Do you
Yeah,
want
no, you can move forward.
Okay.
That's one that you can barely see on the bathroom floor, but looks like a worm to me that I didn't fry with a torch, you know?
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And oh yeah, this is quite the picture of, this is from a video shot, and I took a screenshot. And if you notice this bright dot by my lip, by the corner of my lip, that's the head of one. And then you follow the tail that comes off of it, and it goes up and around like my shoulder. Like that's how long some of these things get. Some of these things are like worm length. I mean, snake's length. They're not tiny, some of them. A lot of them are teeny tiny, microscopic, and other ones are massively long. Um, yeah, it's wild. And so I had to use special filters in order to show these with the screenshot, but it's pretty obvious to me. And then so they're gunning for your mouth and your nostrils.
Wow.
Um, yeah. If the eyeball, if you zoom in there, um, right at the iris and stuff, it's pretty sketch. And what's coming down from the white part of the corner of the eye down onto my skin, I mean, that's a worm. Um, and interestingly, since I started deworming, well, I have progressive lenses for reading, and from seeing far away. Well, I have to take my glasses off now in order to read because I don't need any magnification to read anymore because of my deworming. My eyesight's improved since I started taking ivermectin and starting doing my protocol. A lot of vision problems are parasitic related too. A lot of optometry and ophthalmology is a scam as well.
I had a guest come on somewhat recently who said he started detoxing from heavy metals and parasites. And he
Hmm.
said his brown eyes actually started to become more bluish green because the toxins were like leaving
Hmm.
his iris area and clearing up. They were like brown colored and they were clearing up, and he actually started to get colored eyes, which I thought was really fascinating.
Wow, I've never heard that before. That's cool.
Yeah.
This one's, I think, a video. I think I zoom in on it. There's one here in the iris that's, I mean, look at that.
Wow.
I know there's that reflection there, and I have better shots of the eye, but I didn't have time to find them, you know. But all those little things that it looks like it's they look like they're distortion or you know some background noise, but no, all those fuzzy things, those are all little tiny worms, little microscopic size worms. Those are all larvae, probably. Um, just crawling all over you. It's not any fun. Uh, Here you can see one going around the glasses around my ear, like, you know, it's can you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I just have to reality check to make sure you can see that. Yeah. And you know. This one, you can see them like on my chest, especially around like my neckline area. Now, I've lost a lot of weight. I'm in much better health than I am here. This was in December of 23. But I messed with the video filters a little bit and to make them a little bit more noticeable, but it's not easy. And unfortunately, with the laptop I'm using, it shakes. But I don't know if you can make those out, but they're just worms crawling all over me there. This is when I was really ready to just quit, call it quits. It was, anyways.
Wow. How wonderful you got all this on video too. That way you're, even if you're not believed, it's documented.
Right, right, right. So, I don't like this picture. It's, I was wearing, anyways. Can you jump ahead on this video to about, I think, 1 minute and 20 seconds, 1 minute, 30 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Mm, come here.
Now, I want to pay attention to this bird up here, this pigeon. Okay, this is all of my stuff. I was at the car wash in Albuquerque. And so I took all my stuff out of the car to get my car washed. And then I started watching this bird, just kind of being obsessed with my stuff. And watch him just, or her, just start pecking around all my stuff for a couple minutes. What do you think the bird was eating? Good worm meal there.
Wow.
From all my stuff. And all my stuff is bagged up because I bag everything up because I was like, well, if there's anything living, if I suffocate them, then they can't be living much longer. So I used to have to bag everything up. It was really an exhausting process. And this pigeon will go around towards the back and so I've learned to really pay attention to where birds are hanging out and where they're pecking on the ground anymore, and it really gives me a heads up of where the worms are, because the birds can sense the worms just fine, even though we have a hard time identifying them visually. They're built to hunt and kill worms and feed off of them. So,
Wow.
anyways. This was in Amarillo, Texas, in around New Year's of 2024. And I had so many symptoms, and rubbing alcohol dries out the worms and helps like deal with them. But I had so many worms, and I went into the shower and I poured some rubbing alcohol on my face, and instead of it just being uncomfortable and stinging, it burned the side of my face right there because it reacted with the worms that were on my skin and left a pretty sizable burn there for I had that burn for a month or two. And I ended up seeing a doctor at one point, and he said it was he tried to put it towards what's that shingles. He tried to say it
Okay.
was shingles. So shingles might be parasitic too. You know. So.
Well, that's also scary too to think how many people are being identified as having something wrong, and then the doctor is misdiagnosing them and treating them for something like shingles when it's actually something they need detoxed from their body,
Right.
right?
Right.
Scary just to think like the negligence and not even wittingly, a lot of them just aren't taught a lot of these protocols. They're only taught specific things. And so they only have so many um boxes they can sort of check and put you in, and parasites and, heavy metals, that type of thing typically doesn't come up. It's usually
No,
about
no.
shingles. They know about anything that they want to recommend a vaccine for, right? But
Hmm.
stuff that you can just
Or
actually,
long-term medication or whatever
yeah,
to treat some symptoms or,
100%. Yes.
or lotions or, that are prescription based. Yeah,
And man, thank God that you knew enough to like take charge of that yourself and that you knew you were being given wrong information and diagnosis. 'Cause you could have went on like a whole shingles protocol to get rid of shingles and ended up with
right.
another set of health problems because that wasn't what
Exactly.
you had.
Then that's exactly what happens. You end up taking treatments that were unnecessary and they develop side effects from the treatments, and then you're taking treatments from the side effects that you shouldn't have ever gotten in the first place. And it's an endless game of it's awful.
It's a hamster.
At this point, I also want to give a big thanks to a lot of the information that I learned in terms of my parasite protocols and how to protect myself. I have to thank three people in particular. There's something called the Human Parasite Support Network on Facebook. I'm no longer on Facebook, but three women were instrumental in helping me. One was this woman named Vicky, who was able to identify filarial worms under my skin. And she was the first person to validate those. And she was a real help for me during some of my really tumultuous times. And then I met another woman named Leanne, who is in Louisiana, who was, I don't know if she still is, we don't talk much anymore, but she was a moderator for this group on this Facebook group. She was a big help. She saved my life. All three of these women saved my life and my sanity that I'm referencing. And I can't give them enough to express enough gratitude for how they helped me. And then Leanne introduced me to my dear friend Vanessa, who we've recently had a spat and falling out with. But Leanne, I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for Leanne. I'd probably still be on the streets too. Or not Leanne, Vanessa. And Vanessa's just she's a true earth angel, and she went above and beyond, and it's a shame that we've hit a rift. But I just want to give a shout out to all three of those women for just going above and beyond and helping me when they weren't receiving anything in return, and they were just doing it from the goodness of their heart. This was at a McDonald's in Colorado, where all these worms are just sitting there in my skin, and everybody's just sitting there having their meal, and I'm just sitting here filming my skin while all these worms are crawling all over it. It's wild. This was early. This was like February or March of 2024. Um, and yeah, so I just have a few pictures like this of my arm in different angles. Um, So yeah, but everything, all my health, my gastrointestinal issues, my skin issues, my neurological issues, they're all dramatically improved. I'm still being intentionally parasitized on occasion. Some nights are worse than others, and the attacks are always worse at night because this worms don't like sunlight, and so
Mm.
they will intentionally parasitize you at night. And typically, they'll parasitize you when you in your sleep and stuff, where you can't defend yourself.
Oh, wow. They're
And
much
so it's
more
really
functional.
difficult to live any sort of life, any sort of normalcy. If you're up all night defending yourself and things, and then obviously that's going to disrupt your sleep schedule and your ability to participate in society. And here you're walking around with worms. Most people have delusional parasitosis, completely isolate from the world because they don't want to transmit these parasites to anybody else. But that's what they want you to do because that they they're specifically targeting you. I don't know exactly how the perpetrators do it, but it's either by getting into your soap or your shampoo and stuff that you use, or your toothpaste and your toothbrush, where these worms specifically target you and they leave other people alone. So if you have delusional parasitosis, unless you're going swimming, you're really not another threat to another person in public.
And then this one's the last one, I think, correct?
Yeah. That's over like a 4 year span right there. And like when I started recording all this, I have so much media that's just junk. Like you couldn't show it to anybody. If you showed it to anybody, like, oh, that guy's just crazy, you know? So
Totally. No, thank you for putting all of that together. That's going to be really helpful for people who don't know that this stuff exists. And then also, it's really validating for people who are or have gone through it and also either weren't believed or were gaslit, or just, were isolated in knowing that there's something wrong and nobody else could really see it but them. So thank you for validating so many people and for sharing all these different moments in time that showcase exactly what you're trying to get across, your message.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's so evil to portray people as crazy for when they have an acute and chronic like hell that's very real. It's completely like I don't know who convinced people like, hey, this is a great idea. We intentionally just flood people with parasites to get them on antipsychotics to discredit them and say that they're crazy. Because the argument is that delusional parasitosis is an evolutionary condition that we just have evolutionarily have. Some people are just more freaked out about parasitic sensations than others, right? That's the theory. Well, if that's the case, then why did we only start diagnosing delusional parasitosis in the United States around 1970? You know, because I can tell you, cases weren't missed because anybody who has it, like people are like really in your face. They're people diagnosed with delusional parasitosis in the medical community are known as the most difficult patients to treat for obvious reasons, you know. So it's not something that was overlooked and that we just have better diagnostic tools now. No, we didn't start intentionally parasitizing people until about 1970 or so.
Interesting.
So, but yeah, in terms of like the healing, a great thing is well, bathing and showering are critical. You need to do it every day. Salt baths are great, Epsom salt baths and stuff. Also, throwing a little baking soda into your bath is terrific. Both salt and baking soda dry out the worms and they kill the worms or any other organisms that could be living on your skin, bacteria and stuff. And another thing is borax, the stuff that you can buy for soap. And supposedly, once borax is diluted and you put it in your bath with the salt and the baking soda, that if when the worms ingest the borax, it supposedly attacks the worms from the inside out, whereas the salt and the baking soda kind of get them from the outside in. And so that's one great way. And a lot of people just with delusional parasitosis spend a couple hours a day in the bathtub. Just that's like the one place where they can actually get relief. And then fasting is really great too. If you're not eating, the parasites aren't eating. And intermittent fasting is great. I'd actually recommend that people try to pick like one day a week or whatever, where they really dedicate to extending a fast as long as possible. We've been lied to. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. It's often it's best to skip breakfast, and that if you can extend the period from when you're sleeping, because you fast when you sleep, to early evening, I mean, late evening before you go to bed and the first few hours that you wake up, that extends the fasting period and thus combats the parasites. And also, when you fast, when you eat, all of your body's energy goes to digestion rather than fighting off infections and stuff. And so, when you're fasting, all your body's energy can go to fighting the infections rather than digesting whatever you're eating and munching. So snacking is the worst thing to do if you have a parasitic infection. It's best to eat meals like middle of the afternoon. Just eat like a couple of big, like fat heavy meals in the middle of the day that will make you feel satiated and full throughout the day. Yeah. And I also wanted to say, I really said, like, a lot of people get benefits from eating like organic vegetables, fruits and vegetables, and things like that. But I really want to say that the best thing to do is to buy from, well, either grow your own stuff, or shop at a farmer's market and support your local community. And that most of these people are, rather than buying from a corporate farm, that's at your grocery store, support your local farmers market. And then there's also this app called Misfits Market, I guess, where a lot of healthy, because the problem is healthy food's usually more expensive than processed food. But Misfits Market, they'll deliver to your home like once a week, where they sort of have excess of certain healthy foods, be it fruits, vegetables, or lean proteins or anything like that. And so they'll deliver healthy quality food to you at a discounted price. And it's something that somebody told me about, and I haven't used it, but I think it's really probably a useful tool. And then what else? Also with salt. I heard this from Gary Brecka, who's really done a lot of podcasts. He's on X and stuff. Follow him. Is that if you every morning, if you take a water and you put Celtic salt or Baja Sea Gold salt or Himalayan pink salt into the water, like half a teaspoon, you put it into the water and you just drink it. These salts are really rich, really mineral rich, and they provide these essential minerals that our diets are really lacking today. So just a glass of salt water but not iodized salt, but these more granule crystallized salts that have a lot of minerals in them. Of course, I talked about the bass. Copper, you notice I'm wearing like a copper bracelet, it has magnets on it. Copper has a lot of healing properties. Also, we're always getting hit by 5G, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi signals, not only with grounding and earthing, but if you wear certain copper things, it will discharge things. There's also I recommend people go away from using like Teflon pans, things like that, nonstick pans, to going to cast iron or ideally to copper cookware. Copper has a lot of antimicrobial properties, and there's a lot of research showing that if you cook with copper cookware, you have lower rates of Alzheimer's, dementia, and a host of other conditions. That copper has been intentionally sort of phased out, and instead we have these non-stick Teflon type things that are really microplastics and toxins. So each time you cook with them, you are cooking with toxins and putting toxins into yourself. Whereas if you go with cast iron or ideally copper, then you actually get benefits from those. I know they're more difficult to clean, they're more expensive, but I think it's worth the investment for those who can afford it. Um, and What else? Also, I don't know how much there is to this, but I like talking, like, how people talk to their plants and they say that their plants like it, right? And their plants grow. Well, water also holds energy. And so if you're speaking like loving and healing things and gratitude, it's sort of like blessing your food. It's saying grace before you have dinner or something, right? And sort of like the Last Supper, like what Jesus did. He was blessing the wine and the food and stuff, and then everybody partook in it. Well, water holds energy. So if you're speaking loving, healing things into it, it's also going to have loving, healing qualities inside, internally to you. It's You can run different experiments actually, and you can scream at water and leave it alone for like a week and see what happens to it versus speaking loving to it. And you'll notice that the stuff you screamed at like builds up all this film and stuff and dirt, whereas the stuff you speak lovingly to looks healthy. It's really interesting. And then What else? A community and emotional state. is that the parasites and other pathogens, they really thrive. And when you're in a negative, especially fear, if you're in a fear-based state, or even anger, and just when when you're stuck in these like negative emotions, it creates an environment. I don't know how the neurochemistry works, but it's beneficial for the parasites. So if you're in a state of gratitude or happiness or joy or things like that, it actually creates a more difficult environment internally for the parasites to be successful in. Um, I know some of this kind of sounds like kind of woozy, but this is all actually backed up by science. Laughter is like, and we need more laughter for sure. It's by far the best medicine, and cleanliness is godliness. And I was going to say, I really said that, told how these parasites feed off of sugars and carbs, but supposedly honey and maple syrup are like these real natural type of sweeteners are more protective, and you don't come with as much harm as like refined sugars, and certainly not high fructose corn syrup and things like that. So if you have a sweet tooth, I'd recommend turning towards something more natural, or sugar in the raw, or cane sugar, or things like that, rather than processed sugar or corn syrup or any of those types of sweeteners. Even when you use like artificial sweetener, drink like a Diet Coke or stuff, well, first of all, you're putting a ton of chemicals and toxics, but also in terms of like diabetes and stuff, you're confusing your body because your chemistry thinks that you're consuming sugar, so it's going to react in terms of like insulin levels on a certain level to try to combat the sugar, but then it's all confused because it doesn't have sugar to combat. So it's really messing up your chemistry inside when you're using fake sugars and stuff. Um, and what else? I already mentioned the hydrogen peroxide. I wouldn't recommend putting that on your skin. I did that once in an emergency room in Albuquerque. I had some hydrogen peroxide on my leg, and then a worm came up onto my leg, and I suffered a severe burn in my leg in the waiting room of the emergency. That I never even got treated. The doctor's like, "When did that happen?" I was like, "Just now in the waiting room." She's like, "Ooh." But in terms of flooring or in your kitchen or your bathroom and stuff, obviously test a little bit to see before you do any damage. But the hydrogen peroxide is a great way to combat them. Also, that the isopropyl alcohol with wintergreen in it. We already talked about the benefits of the issues parasites have with mint products. Well, if you combine the drying effects of alcohol with the wintergreen stuff, then that's like a double win. So if you have like a lot of biofilm on your skin and stuff, you can just take like a piece of gauze or something, or cotton ball, and dip it in wintergreen rubbing alcohol, and just sort of go around any spots that might be really slimy, because those very well could be worms, and that will combat those. Um, as somebody mentioned in the comments about ozone machines, I haven't used them. I've heard great things about them, but I definitely use like steamers, high-powered, high-temperature steamers. These will kill any bacteria and parasites and things on flooring, on clothing, on furniture, bedding, bathrooms, kitchens. I had a lot of really good luck with steamers. And then I think that's about it.
Real quick, you had mentioned bathing with baking soda. Can
Yeah.
taking it orally as a supplement, can that kill internal parasites, do you think?
That's what I hear. I have not just taken it internally,
Yeah.
but I've been told that actually baking soda is has actually tons of great clinical properties ingesting it. That it's much more than baking, and that but I need to do more research before I can actually like say, hey, that's a good thing to do. But that's something that people should definitely look up. The clinical benefits. I know in X, I've seen it from a couple of doctors talking about how great baking soda is to ingest. Yeah.
Very awesome. I really appreciate that. It's like we need to identify all the problems in the world, and then we also need to, the second thing is we need solutions for it, and how to combat it. And so I
Right.
appreciate you sharing like the darkest of the dark and sharing all these photos and helping people learn how to identify and where to identify these things and what they might look like and, documenting. And then you're also providing ways to prevent and to treat potential parasitic infections or, infestations and things like that too. So that was an amazing presentation that you gave, Gregory, and we're all really, really grateful.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate though, be careful. Like, with hydrogen peroxide, obviously you do not want to be putting that down your digestive tract or anything like that, or
Yeah,
isopropyl alcohol, anything like that. And
100%.
you shouldn't be drinking to combat parasites because it doesn't work that way. Matter of fact, if you're drinking beer and stuff, it's going to make an infection worse because of all the sugars and the carbs in the beer and all the other things. So yeah, it's you know be smart about protocols and stuff, and verify everything before you go in blindly, and start trying things.
Yes. And I know there were some things that we didn't get to today, so I'm really
Mhm.
excited. Hopefully that means that we can do a part three.
Yeah, sounds great.
Was there anything else today that you wanted to cover, or did you want to end on the healing and keep it on that high note?
I think we can just end it right there. You're awesome. Thank you so much, Emma, for providing this platform.
It's my honor. Thank you. It's so great getting to learn from people like you. None of us were taught this stuff, and it's really neat that people like you have spent so many years researching and talking about it and getting familiar with, sort of these holistic ways that we can get around these really big problems that are probably the foundation of a lot of bigger issues, and bigger diseases and conditions that go untreated by the medical establishment and or get misdiagnosed. So it's really helpful just to have a bird's eye view on some other things that could be contributing to disease and dysfunction, and then also to sort of see that we don't always have to get a prescription drug to treat things, that there's some over-the-counter really easy supplemental things that are very affordable, right down to how we document, with microscopes and stuff like that. Like treating yourself and doing internal investigations and being your own doctor in a lot of ways can be very affordable and very easy, and then we can go to a doctor and have more information on our own body and like not have to solely rely on just them to tell us what's wrong with us. We can take the power ourselves and then rely on them for the stuff that, like you said, if we're breaking bones or if we have a heart attack, like really serious things we can lean on them for in emergencies, and then we can start to sort of build our own medicine cabinet at home with more natural things and sort of be our own internal investigator with, our own conditions and stuff. So thank you for how much you empower people. And I know that this stuff is really hard to talk about, and we really appreciate your vulnerability showing those very personal photos of different things that you found on you and then around your environment. It's so helpful for people. And then also for just being a beacon of light. It's really nice that we have people out here giving hope to others and speaking for people who don't yet have their voice or the courage to come speak out or are too debilitated and sick to do a podcast. It's a heavy burden to bear, and you do it very gracefully. So thank you for all that you've done and for all the work that you've championed. And I wanted to just close with, reminding people where they can connect with you. We went over it in the beginning, but if you want to just go ahead and plug all of your different social media sites, that would be awesome.
Sure. TikTok and X is Matchbox Sign 369. YouTube, Subjectively Observed. And I believe I gave you an email address, a Proton email address, not that kind of crazy, at proton.me as well. And what else? I guess that's about it.
And I'll link his Substack too. Like he said, he's not very active, but there's still some really good stuff on there too for you guys. So I'll have all of his links in the show notes. I'll have all my links as well. The easiest way that you guys can support and for free is to just go follow us on different platforms and share our content. Dig through it, read it, share it with a friend, post it on your own social media. All that stuff is really, really helpful, not just to provide support for brave whistleblowers and survivors like Greg, but to help empower to get this information out, because it's never going to come from our MSM or our, medical establishment. Like we have to really champion helping this information circulate. It starts with all of us. So I'll have all of that in the show notes, you guys. I'll have Greg's first episode linked down there too. So if you guys missed that, go back and watch it. Tons of goodies in there too, with lots of information, lots of education, and you guys get to learn more about Greg in that episode on a personal level. So go check that one out too if you missed it. Share this episode, like I said, share it with a friend, share Gregory's content. Go follow him on all of his different platforms. Follow me as well. I'll have all my information in the show notes. Thank you guys for listening. God bless you, and we will see you next time.